Coming up now on Animal Outtakes, it's a group mainly of volunteers. When a wild animal is in need of help, they come to rescue. We're visiting the Wildlife Center of Venice. These volunteers are doing it all.
I climb trees to do rescues and renestings.
Their goal is to rehabilitate and then release animals back into the wild. And they're not afraid of a challenge. And it's one of the largest non-venomous snakes found naturally in the United States. But this big guy is nothing compared to my level of apprehension. This and much more straight ahead on Animal Outtakes. Hello and welcome to Animal Outtakes. I'm Marcia Panucci. You know, I remember when I was driving one day and I happened to look over and there was a bird, and the bird was definitely in distress. So what happens if you notice a wild animal in need of help? You look for an organization that specializes in caring for the sick and injured wildlife. And we found a remarkable place that does just that. It's called the Wildlife Center of Venice.
These guys contribute mice, rats, bugs. They'll help keep a lot of those populations down. And they wander, so possums don't hang around the same place all the time. They'll continue to wander, so if they come through your yard, they're gonna go right back out your yard. But they do help keep those populations down.
It's something most of us would rarely see: baby opossums. An opossum, of course, is a marsupial. The litter of babies live in their mother's pouch until they're ready and big enough to move out.
Not everybody knows to look. I didn't until I started here. It's not something I would have thought about.
But for these babies, they wouldn't have survived if it wasn't for a caring passerby. Their mother was hit by a car. That good Samaritan saw it was too late for her, but knew to check her pouch.
These guys are going to get tubed about every 4 hours.
How old do you think they are right now?
These guys are probably, I would say, 3.5 weeks.
At the Wildlife Center of Venice, this is just one of the rescues that came in today. Pam, it's so good to be with you again. And we're here at the Wildlife Center of Venice, and you do some very extraordinary things. But if you were to describe what the organization truly is, are you a rescue, are you a rehab, or are you a sanctuary, or a combination of all three?
We are rescue and rehab. We have the largest rescue organization in the county. So we will go out and respond to calls for sick and injured wildlife. We bring them back here and rehabilitate them in hopes to release them back into the wild. That's always our first and foremost main focus.
We speak of wildlife. Would you please define what wildlife is in Sarasota County?
Wildlife is anything that is native to Florida. Birds, mammals, reptiles are all fall under the native wildlife here.
And we are so happy for you because you're in a bigger facility now.
Yes.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is.
So how many animals do you treat in a year's time, would you say?
Last year we did about 4,500 birds, mammals, and reptiles.
It all depends on the season as to what animals they will see an influx of. So the process is this: somebody sees an animal in distress, or they see what they perceive to be an orphan or an injured animal. They call you, and then you jump into action.
Absolutely. We will get on the phone and find the first volunteer to say yes and go get that animal and bring it to us for treatment.
Now, you speak of the volunteers, which I know are very, very important to your organization. They are trained then to be able to handle these animals?
Absolutely. We do have 1 or 2 rescue training classes per month, both up here in Venice and Sarasota. Which is really hands-on training on how to approach an animal based on injury and species. And then they will go out, catch the animal hopefully, and bring it to us. It's really important to understand the stress factor when we're treating them, when we're capturing them, when we're releasing them, because every time we go to handle them or make any kind of eye contact, they do perceive us as a threat.
And being looked at as a threat is actually a good thing, and exactly what the staff and volunteers want to keep intact. The goal is to give minimal human contact, treating the injury as quickly and quietly as possible. After all, Pam says about 85% of the injuries they see are caused by humans.
I believe that they deserve the care and treatment of anything else that's on this planet. And a lot of injuries that we get in aren't necessarily nature, they're man-made issues. Electrocution, hit by cars, improper trapping, environmental issues, things being dumped into the water. All of those affect the animals in a negative way. So we're kind of the cleanup crew. We're not going to differentiate, oh, the squirrel fell out of the tree, we'll just leave it. If it comes to us, we will evaluate it the best we can and decide what treatment is going to be.
So I think it would be safe to say then that if any animal is in distress, your heart is going to go out to this animal.
Absolutely.
But when you release, how do you really feel?
It's one of the most rewarding things ever, is to be able to bring that animal in, treat him, and watch him go back home and know he's home, because they do. That's where they want to be. And there's no words to describe how that is. It keeps us motivated to, the next patient and the next patient. It's rewarding.
It's the staff and volunteers that really make an organization, like the Wildlife Center of Venice, so successful in rescuing and eventually, hopefully, releasing many of the wild animals that come in. And if you think about it, what a job it must be to try and put a wild bird back up in a tree.
Hi, I'm Kipp. I am one of the volunteers at the Wildlife Center of Venice, and one of the things that I do for them is I climb trees to do rescues and renestings. I currently, or had started recently, working for the center as far as doing rescues in the trees or doing renesting in the trees. So if we have, say, an eaglet or an owlet that has to be put back into their nest, I'm one of the volunteers that will climb the trees and do the renesting. Or in some cases, we actually have animals that need to be rescued from out of trees. So we'll actually climb trees and do rescues as well.
You got them?
Yep.
Okay.
Make sure I've got my pants and my work boots on, because I do wear spikes and I do wear a harness. And I'll usually put a hoodie on underneath my helmet. I do wear a safety helmet. Just in case I do get hit in the back, it gives me a little bit of a better protection. Once I'm in position, I'll safety strap myself in, so I don't have to worry about myself at that point in time. I can just concentrate on making sure I'm doing the right things to get the renesting or saving a bird. I won't take the bird with me when I go up. I will climb the tree and I'll get in position. I'll make sure that everything is okay. In the case of owls, a lot of times we have to make them a new nest, because owls don't build nests. They use old nests from other animals, and most of the time they're in very poor shape, and that's how the owlets end up on the ground. So we will make a new nest for them near their original nest or where their original nest was, so that it's a safer area for them to be into. And then once I get that in position, I have a feed rope, and I'll pull the owlets or the eaglet up to the tree, and we'll put them back where they belong. One of the key things is, especially with great horned owls, they like to come in, and the parents will like to come in and hit you in the back. So that's one thing that you have to be prepared for. So usually somebody on the ground is keeping an eye on the parents, and if they're coming in, they just give you a heads up and let you know, look, you're going to get hit, so just be prepared for it. Or the other thing is, sometimes they get you with their talons. When I was doing the eaglet the other day, one of them, or it got its talons into my thigh, which, their talons are pretty good size at this point in time. So you just got to be careful when you're handling them to try to avoid those situations. I think, you try to get more and more involved with, especially this community, with the rehab and rescues. there's so many different things that we do, and there's so many different ways you have to be geared up or prepared for it. So it's like that constant learning of the job, and I would say that's something that interests me, as I'm always wanting to learn. So this is a great opportunity for me with regards to that.
You can't be afraid of heights for that job. Later in the show, we'll be back out at the Wildlife Center of Venice, where we'll be introduced to one of the newest rescues, an orphaned otter pup. And it's one of the largest non-venomous snakes found in the United States. And I dare say one of the most beautiful snakes too. That's next. It's time for a paw raid. Bring your kids and pups for hours of Easter fun. Saturday, March 24th at the 4 Point Sheraton in Punta Gorda from 1 to 4. There'll be dog shows, costumes optional, and an egg hunt for the kids, plus the grand Easter parade. There's also a chance to win a limited edition Kids Porsche pushcart. Go online now to dantesden.org to register for a chance for you and your pup to lead the parade. Admission fee includes appetizers. All money goes to support the lovable pups at Dantes Den. Every dog deserves a lifelong loving home. Dantes Den provides a pristine, comfortable haven for dogs that have been abandoned or surrendered by their owners. Every pup in our Joyful Dogs adoption program receives lots of love and attention, is properly immunized, spayed or neutered, and is in good health. Find your new furry best friend at Dantes Den. For more information, go to dantesden.org or call 844-DANTES-DEN. So Kurt, who's my new buddy here?
This is a male adult eastern indigo snake, largest non-venomous snake in North America, and they're native to Florida, or at least a few places in Florida still. Used to be found throughout the southeastern United States, but primarily because of habitat destruction. These animals have a huge range, and so when they're moving about looking for food, and this time of year, this is breeding season for these guys, so they're looking for mates, they're likely to encounter a highway in Florida and they end up as roadkill.
Are they an invasive species for us, or they really belong here?
They really belong here. They're the opposite of an invasive species. These guys should be here, and believe it or not, our Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission just this past year authorized a program where they're releasing captive produced eastern indigo snakes into the panhandle, where they haven't been for over 30 years, or at least they haven't been documented for over 30 years. So the hope that is within the next 30 years that we'll have an actual surviving breeding population of these guys up there.
Now, how helpful to the environment are they?
They're critical. They're an apex predator. You see the size of this animal. They basically can eat anything that's smaller than them, but they prefer rodents, they prefer rats. They are snake eaters when they have the opportunity. They'll eat fish. They're known to eat venomous snakes, so some people think that's cool. I don't really like the idea of them taking eastern diamondbacks out, but they sometimes have done that. But really, for rodent control and the kind of animals that we don't want around our homes, you know, these guys would take them out.
Now, how long would you say he is?
He's over 7 feet.
Okay. And
they supposedly do grow up to 9 feet. I've never seen one that's 9 feet. It's possible. I've seen them close to 8 feet, but it's a big animal, no matter how you slice it.
Now, I've been playing with his tail here. I'm sure you can feel that.
He can.
So, obviously, other than the fangs that can get you, what about the strength? Is it like a python, an anaconda that can
it's a good
really
question.
get you?
They're a constrictor of sorts, but not like a python. A python or our rat snakes here in Florida grab a prey item and they wrap it up, and they cause it to suffocate in that fashion. These guys, oftentimes, they like to inhabit gopher tortoise burrows. So when they're cruising down a gopher tortoise burrow, they'll encounter a rat or a mouse, and they'll grab it and push it up against the side of the burrow with their body, and use that pressure, the musculature in this, you know, that you feel wrapped around your hand. They'll use that to suffocate the animal and then eat it.
Well, how
very
much does he
effective.
weigh? Because I'm trying to hold him up here and he's beginning to sink.
This, I mean, he feels like he weighs more than he does, but I'd say he's probably about 8 pounds. So
He feels much more
4
than that.
kilos, something in that neighborhood.
And he is not a quiet guy, is he? He's just kind of taking it all in.
Indigo snakes are a challenge to photograph because they're constantly moving. They're curious, but even though he's moving, it's gentle movements, and so it's one of the reasons why people that want to keep a pet snake historically have loved to keep indigo snakes, because they get big, they're nice animals, and they're gentle for the most part.
And they're very photogenic because the coloring here is absolutely beautiful. And this is a real treat to be able to hold a snake like this. I have many times said I have been very fearful of snakes, but with you and him, I think I'm getting better. Stay with us. We're heading back to the Wildlife Center of Venice, where an orphan pup has just arrived. For the staff and the volunteers with the Wildlife Center of Venice, every day they get a call about an animal in need of help. Now on this particular day, it was a call about an otter pup that just seemed to be hanging around someone's house. Pam, we've got this adorable otter here. No name otter.
No name otter.
For a reason, but he's just so cuddly. How old is he? And I know he has a story.
He does have a story. He's probably about 8 weeks old. We got a call about a young otter wandering through somebody's backyard. So we sent one of our awesome rescuers out there to get him. And when we respond to these calls, we do actively search for a parent before we remove a baby. We want to make sure what we're removing is truly an orphan. So he came to us. He was on a bottle for a little while, and now he just went on to a milk bowl. And of course, he's going through his little teething stage, so he wants to chew. But yep, they are adorable.
But they can be dangerous to a human finger or something else.
They have lots of teeth.
Yes.
They should never be approached. They should never be fed out in the wild. The more fear they have of us because they're so social is the best.
Now, when he is out in the wild and he gets to be a little bit bigger, what will he be eating?
A lot of mussels, clams, shellfish. They spend a lot of time in the water. They travel from water source to water source. Usually, you'll have more than one around because they are very, very social. And then if somebody leaves out cat food in their backyard, they will randomly walk into the backyard. So we always encourage people not to do that. But they eat a lot of shellfish, a lot of crustaceans.
Now he's feisty.
He is.
He's a little bit nervous. I don't blame him. This is his television debut. But you want him to be feisty. You want him to be a bit apprehensive because he is going to go out into the wild. At what age are you going to let him go?
When he's about 6 months old. we'll start transitioning him to the wild. So in the meantime, we'll start, now that he's on a milk bowl, we'll spend less time with him, you know, handling him. Outside, we do vaccinate them before we release them.
And you're vaccinating for what?
We vaccinate them for distemper, and we do vaccinate them for rabies because they are a rabies vectored species, which is why we always encourage people not to attempt to feed them.
Right.
This is the season for babies, so moms will protect their babies. And so we always want to be cautious. And sometimes if they lose their fear of humans, they become dangerous, like many other animals.
But he truly is an orphan. He lost everybody, didn't he? Yeah, he lost his parents, he lost his brother. So you are a survivor. Otter pups usually stay with their mom for about a year, learning hunting and grooming skills from her. So for this otter, finding a sibling is important for him to learn the traits necessary to survive. But staff are confident that the orphaned otter pup is tough and a successful release is likely in his future. If you would like more information about the Wildlife Center of Venice, visit their website, wildlifecenterofvenice.org. It's time for a paw raid. Bring your kids and pups for hours of Easter fun. Saturday, March 24th at the 4 Point Sheraton in Punta Gorda from 1 to 4. There'll be dog shows, costumes optional, and an egg hunt for the kids, plus the grand Easter paw raid. There's also a chance to win a limited edition Kids Porsche pushcart. Go online now to dantesden.org to register for a chance for you and your pup to lead the paw raid. Admission fee includes appetizers. All money goes to support the lovable pups at Dantes Den. I have an allergic dog. Malucci, who is now 6 years old, a giant schnauzer, has been allergic from the day I got him. And we've had tests upon tests upon tests. And it keeps coming back, food allergies. Really?
Sure. Most allergies, and allergies in general in cats and dogs present is usually general itching, generalized itching. It can be the head, it can be the legs, chewing, licking, but general body itching somewhere.
Under the chin.
Yeah,
He could
sure.
claw himself.
Sure.
Same thing with the paws in between.
Right, licking the feet and the toes, very common for dogs. Now, 90% of probably all allergic pets are allergic to dust, pollen, molds, dust mites. And instead of us with like allergies like hay fever and ragweed, we breathe that stuff in, we get itchy eyes, we get runny nose, we get sinus issues. Pets, when they breathe it in and they step and they walk and they get it on their feet, pets from allergies get itchy skin. Now, so 90% of an itchy dog that walks into my office, right off the bat, it's 90% of the time allergies till proven otherwise. About maybe 10%, and it's hard to figure exact numbers, but veterinary board certified nutritionists and dermatologists will agree in general it's maybe only about 10% of the pet population that is truly food allergic. Okay, and food allergy will cause the same thing. The allergens get into the system, they circulate, they cause itching. And food allergies, of course, will cause upset stomachs too. Some pets will have vomiting and diarrhea issues. So it could be one or the other or both. But again, small percentage of the population, and you're usually allergic to one of the major proteins, the chicken, the meat, the fish, the major protein in there. Now, to determine if you're food allergic, there are the number one best acid test for diagnosing a food allergy is to put them on a very controlled, what's called elimination diet or a hypoallergenic diet, where you're feeding the pet something it has never eaten before. So theoretically, it hasn't been exposed, it can't be allergic to something its body has never seen. So 25 years ago, roughly, lamb and rice diets first came on the market, if anybody's old enough to remember lamb and rice diets. And the reason they came out with lamb and rice was because lamb is not in normal foods because it's too expensive. So if we suspected a pet with a food allergy, we transition them over maybe a week or two, and you don't want to do it all of a sudden. You transition so you don't change the food suddenly because that'll upset the stomach. But you transition and then you keep the pet on for like 4 to 12 weeks on a very specific diet for ingredients that this pet has never ever eaten. And if the signs clear up, then you know it's a high likelihood that that pet is food allergic. And then it's a little more effort to try to figure out specifics. You know, you could supplement back. Okay, let's feed chicken now for a week or two and see if that pet gets itchy. Or feed the beef for a week. And so you could scientifically figure out specifically what they're allergic to. But let me go back to blood tests, saliva tests, even hair analysis. All have been shown to be extremely inaccurate, and you can waste a lot of money doing these, and you really don't get good information. Do a hypoallergenic diet, and it has to be 100% strict. When you're feeding one of these diets, you can't feed a dog food biscuit. You can't feed a treat, a snack from the table. It has to be 100% or you're wasting your time and your money. And you have to do it for a minimum of 4 weeks to maybe even 12 weeks or more for some pets to see if these allergy signs, whether they're skin or intestinal, clear up.
Can they ever be cured?
No, you can't cure a food allergy. I believe once you're allergic to a food, you're sensitive. But you can be cured of pollen, dust, molds. So animals can get allergy tested like people, where the dermatologist will inject all the different things, find out what you're allergic to. You get a vaccine, and you inject your pet like twice a week at home. You can actually cure inhalant allergies, we call it.
Great advice, and we need to follow it. We hope you had fun and learned a thing or two along the way. We'll be back here again next week with even more animals and some wild adventures. Until then, thanks for watching. Yes. And do you think you could take us around today, Lucy? Yes. Are you going to show us a lot of different animals? Yes. Huh?
She pretty much runs the place.